Snow drifted softly from a pale winter sky, settling on the edges of parked cars, the bare branches of maple trees, and the cracked sidewalk where 9-year-old Lily tightened her scarf around her neck and tugged closer to her father's gloved hand. The city smelled like pine wreaths, roasted chestnuts, and something faintly sad like cold air mixed with memories. Everywhere Lily looked, Christmas lights blinked from windows, shop doors jingled, and people hurried past carrying wrapped gifts and warm laughter. She should have felt excited. She usually did. But something tugged at her chest that evening, a quiet ache she couldn't explain, until her eyes landed on the woman sitting near the closed toy store at the corner. The woman was thin, bundled in an oversized gray coat with frayed cuffs, her hair streaked with silver and tucked beneath a knit hat that had once been red. In her lap rested 2 Ragdolls, handmade and mismatched, their button eyes uneven, and their yarn hair tangled from too much handling. One doll wore a faded blue dress, the other a tiny green scarf stitched lovingly but imperfectly. Lily slowed her steps without realizing it, her father nearly walking into her as she stopped completely. The woman wasn't begging. She wasn't holding a sign. She just sat there quietly, rocking slightly, humming what sounded like an old Christmas lullaby. The dolls were positioned as though they were listening, as though they mattered. Lily's heart squeezed. She let go of her father's hand and walked closer, her boots crunching softly in the snow. The woman looked up, startled at first, then softened when she saw Lily's wide brown eyes fixed on the dolls. "They're beautiful," Lily said, her voice gentle and certain, the way children speak when they mean something purely. The woman blinked, then smiled, a small, trembling smile that looked like it didn't get much use anymore. "Thank you," she replied. "I made them years ago, for my girls." Lily crouched down, studying the stitching, the frayed seams lovingly repaired again and again. "Where are your girls?" she asked, not sensing danger, only curiosity and warmth. The woman's eyes misted. "Heaven, I think," she whispered. "Or maybe wherever good memories go." Lily didn't fully understand, but she understood enough. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the candy cane she'd been saving for later, holding it out like a sacred offering. The woman hesitated, then accepted it with shaking hands. "Merry Christmas," Lily said. From a few steps back, Lily's father, Daniel, watched, his chest tightening. He was a practical man, careful, protective. The kind of father who planned ahead, who believed kindness mattered, but also believed the world could be harsh if you weren't careful. He had noticed the woman earlier, and instinctively pulled Lily slightly closer then, the way parents do when they don't know how to explain suffering. But now, watching his daughter kneel in the snow, speaking to a stranger with an open heart, something inside him shifted. Lily turned back toward him then, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Daddy," she began, her voice trembling. He walked closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, sweetheart?" Lily took a deep breath, the kind too big for a child her age. "Can we bring her home for Christmas?" The words landed between them, heavy and fragile all at once. Daniel froze. The woman's eyes widened in alarm. "Oh no, dear," she said quickly. "That's very kind, but—" Daniel raised a hand gently, not to stop her daughter, but to slow the moment before it shattered. He crouched beside Lily. "Honey," he said softly, "it's not that simple." Lily frowned, tears spilling now. "But she's cold, and she's alone. And Christmas is about family, right?" Daniel swallowed hard. Across the street, a group of shoppers laughed as they exited a cafe, steam rising from their cups, bells jingling on the door behind them. The contrast hurt. Daniel met the woman's gaze then, truly looked at her, not as a problem to solve, but as a person. "May I ask your name?" he said carefully. "Margaret," she replied. "But everyone used to call me Maggie." Margaret explained slowly and without drama, as if she were reciting a story she'd told herself many times, just to remember who she was. She had once been a seamstress. She had loved Christmas. Her husband had died first, heart attack on a cold, December morning 20 years ago. The girls followed years later in an accident, the night before Christmas Eve. After that, the world had become too loud, too empty. Bills stacked, grief swallowed everything. And somewhere along the way, she lost her home but not her hands. She still made dolls when she could find scraps of fabric. It reminded her of when her house smelled like cinnamon and warm bread, when laughter filled the rooms. Lily listened as though every word stitched itself into her heart. Daniel felt something unravel in his chest. The careful rules. He lived by loosening thread by thread. Snow fell thicker now. Lily shivered, and Daniel slipped his coat off, draping it around her shoulders. She didn't stop looking at Margaret. "Daddy," she said again quietly. She could sleep on the couch. "I'll give her my blanket. Just for Christmas." Daniel closed his eyes briefly. He thought of his warm house. His wife, gone 3 years now. The ache Lily carried too, quiet, brave. He thought of the promises adults make to themselves about boundaries and safety. And the promises children make without words, to love without fear. He let out a slow breath. "Margaret," he said, his voice rough, "if you'd like a hot meal and a place to rest tonight, we'd be honored to have you." Margaret stared at him, stunned. "I don't want to be a burden," she whispered. Lily reached out and held her hand. "You won't be," she said firmly. "We need you too." Margaret wept then. Silent, shaking tears she tried desperately to hide. Daniel helped her stand, gathered her, bags, the dolls tucked carefully under her arm. As they walked away from the corner, past glowing windows and blinking lights, Lily looked up at her father and smiled through her tears. Daniel squeezed her hand, realizing in that moment that Christmas hadn't been saved by decorations or gifts, but by a child who saw someone invisible and called her family. And as they stepped into the swirling snow together, none of them knew yet just how deeply that single question, "Can we bring her home for Christmas, Daddy?" was about to change all their lives.